The possession doesn't look special at first. No fast break, no isolation at half court, no crowd rising in anticipation. Just Derrick Rose walking the ball up, reading the floor like he always did, calm enough to feel almost casual. Phoenix is set, not scrambling, not panicking. They've done what defenses are taught to do. Build a wall, close the gaps, make the athletic guard think instead of react. This is the moment where most plays die. Rose takes one dribble to his right. The lane is crowded immediately. A defender shades him from the front. Another slides over from the weak side. The help is early. The spacing is wrong. The angle disappears. Every cue says pull it back out, reset, live for the next possession. But Derrick Rose doesn't slow down. There's a split second, barely visible unless you know what to look for, where his foot hits the floor and his body makes a decision before his brain finishes the thought. No hesitation, no adjustment, no bailout plan. He goes up anyway. This is where the play should end. 5 bodies collapse toward the rim. Arms rise. Space vanishes. The math doesn't work. The physics don't work. For most players, this is a turnover, a blocked shot, or an awkward kick-out that turns into nothing. Instead, Derrick Rose keeps rising. Not floating, not gliding, rising straight through the congestion like gravity forgot him. His shoulders clear defenders who are already jumping. His head gets level with the rim before anyone realizes he's actually going to try this. And by the time the ball snaps through the net, the building isn't cheering yet. It's confused, because what just happened wasn't supposed to be available. This wasn't a superstar call. This wasn't a breakdown. This wasn't transition chaos. This was a defense doing everything right and still getting punished. That's why this dunk hit different. Not because it was loud, not because it ended up on highlight reels, but because it answered a question the league didn't want to ask yet. What do you do when the defense is perfect and the offense still wins? For a brief moment, everyone watching understood the same thing. Coaches on the sideline, defenders under the rim, scouts in the stands. This wasn't about athleticism anymore. It was about control, or the lack of it. Derrick Rose wasn't just beating defenders. He was beating the idea that defense could always catch up. And once that idea cracks, the league has a problem.
What made that dunk uncomfortable wasn't just how high Derrick Rose jumped, it was how early the defense did everything right. Phoenix didn't gamble, they didn't overcommit, they didn't chase a highlight block. They stayed disciplined, collapsed on time, trusted the help, trusted the system. On film, this possession would be graded as correct. Coaches would pause it and say, "This is exactly where we want him to see bodies." And that's what scared people. Because if this was the result of good defense, then what was the solution? Around the league, this is how respect actually forms. Not through applause, but through silence. Defenders didn't complain. Coaches didn't argue calls. There was just that look players get when something breaks their internal logic. The moment when they realize the rules they've relied on might not apply anymore. Derrick Rose was still young, still treated like an emerging star, still categorized as explosive but manageable. This dunk challenged that categorization. It suggested something deeper, that Rose didn't need broken plays or speed mismatches. He could beat you inside your structure. That's the worst case scenario for a defense. Because structure is supposed to be the equalizer. Structure is what turns individual talent into something controllable. And for years, that's how the league survived waves of athletic guards. Funnel them, crowd them, make them choose. Rose didn't choose. He attacked anyway. And from that moment on, the conversation subtly shifted. Not in headlines, not on broadcasts, in scouting rooms, in defensive meetings, in the way help defenders were told to arrive earlier, wider, harder, the way bodies were encouraged to meet force with force. Derrick Rose wasn't just being guarded anymore, he was being contained. And that distinction matters, because containment isn't about stopping a shot, it's about limiting damage. It's about preventing the moment before it happens. It's about making sure a player never gets comfortable enough to trust his instincts completely. That dunk told the league something dangerous. If Rose trusted himself fully, the defense might not matter. So the league adjusted, not loudly, quietly.
The league didn't respond to that dunk with outrage. It responded with adjustment. That's always how real change happens in the NBA. Not with noise, but with quiet recalibration. No public statements, no quotes about fear. Just small decisions layered on top of each other until the game feels different for the person on the other side of them. Derrick Rose started noticing it not in one game, but over weeks, over months. The help defender wasn't late anymore, he was early. The second body wasn't reacting, it was stationed. The third defender wasn't guessing, he was bracing for contact. This wasn't respect in the traditional sense, this was prevention. Coaches didn't talk about stopping Rose anymore, they talked about absorbing him, about limiting the explosion, about turning his most dangerous moments into negotiations. How many bodies could you put in his path without fouling? How early could you collapse without surrendering shooters? How much force could you meet force with before instinct hesitated? Because instinct was the real threat. That dunk against Phoenix wasn't impressive because of the height. It was terrifying because there was no pause, no calculation, no safety check. Rose didn't scan for defenders and then decide. He decided first, and the defense simply arrived too late to matter. That kind of decisiveness breaks defensive logic. Most systems are built on the idea that the offense will reveal itself. A jab step, a hesitation, a tell. Something defenders can read and respond to. Derrick Rose removed that step entirely. When he committed fully, and by the time defenders reacted, the outcome was already determined. So the league tried to slow the decision. They crowded him earlier. They cut off angles instead of contesting shots. They sent length not to block, but to collide. The goal wasn't to embarrass him, it was to make him think twice. That's the part fans rarely talk about. Before injuries, before surgeries, before missed seasons, there was a period where Derrick Rose played against anticipation, not defense, where the game subtly asked him, possession after possession, whether this drive was worth it, whether this leap was necessary, whether this moment needed to be absolute. And Rose, for a long time, answered the same way. Yes. That dunk stayed alive because it represented a version of him that hadn't been negotiated yet, a version that didn't bargain with space or safety, a version that didn't wait for the game to open up. It forced itself open, and the league never stopped trying to close it.
That's why this dunk still refuses to fade. Not because it's tragic, not because it's nostalgic, but because it asks an uncomfortable question the NBA never fully answered. What do you do with a player who doesn't respect defensive inevitability? Years later, fans watch that moment and see different things. Some see the peak, proof of what Derrick Rose was before everything changed. Others see recklessness, a warning sign, a moment that feels too violent, too unforgiving to last. But that's hindsight talking. In the moment, that dunk wasn't reckless. It was honest. It was a player trusting his body, his timing, and his belief more than the logic of the defense in front of him. It was a refusal to compromise in a league built on compromise. And that's why it unsettled people. Because the NBA at its core is about balance, talent versus system, expression versus control, freedom versus sustainability. Every generation negotiates that balance differently. Derrick Rose leaned hard toward freedom. Not in words, in actions. He didn't ask if the play would look good on tape. He didn't slow down to protect a future version of himself. He played the moment exactly as it presented itself. Full speed, full commitment, no insurance. That dunk is proof of that philosophy. And the league, consciously or not, pushed back. Not because it hated Rose, because it couldn't afford to let that version become standard. If players stopped respecting defensive structure entirely, the system breaks.
If explosiveness overrides spacing, timing, and positioning, the game tilts into chaos. So the NBA tightened. It emphasized control, longevity, managed risk. It celebrated explosiveness, but only when it fit inside acceptable boundaries, only when it could be coached, measured, sustained. Derrick Rose never fit neatly into that framework. That's why the argument never ends. Was this dunk the moment Derrick Rose became unstoppable, or was it the moment the league realized it had to protect itself? Both can be true. Because for one possession, one impossible leap, Derrick Rose didn't just score, he challenged the assumptions holding the game together. He proved that perfect defense wasn't always enough, that sometimes instinct beats preparation, that sometimes belief moves faster than structure. And even now, years later, the NBA still hasn't fully replaced that feeling. That sense that at any moment, a player might ignore the math, ignore the setup, ignore the warning signs, and jump anyway. That's why this dunk still matters, not as a memory, as a question. And once you see it that way, you realize something unsettling. The NBA didn't forget Derrick Rose. It learned from him, and it made sure it never had to face that exact version again.